Okay, we have in the studios a political analyst, Victor Ayeye, and a RISE news analyst, Professor Adeniyi, who is in Overflow Studios. Let's begin with you, Victor Ayeye. You are not just a political analyst, but you are as well a candidate for the National Assembly in one of the parties. How do you aggregate all these bickerings in our political parties? Is it because there is no enduring political culture in the parties?
Thank you very much. I want to say that this bickering crisis you are having in the parties is not unconnected with personal interest. So many a times people engage because everybody wants to be the one that will have a say, and whatever they say will be what everybody will take. So anytime somebody's opinion is not taken, and during this period, you see crisis, everybody wants to form a faction, everybody wants to form a group, everybody wants to put some people together, everybody wants to make sure that they tell the larger group that they have something at stake. And that is why this is always happening.
And it's like there's so much honey in the pot that the people are scrambling for too. Maybe that's why you have the bickering. Not my opinion. I'm trying to throw this to you, Professor Adeniyi, who is in our offsite studio. And the crisis in the PDP seems to be deepening and not abating. The gladiators, some of them, are back again to London. What are your thoughts here?
The return to London is somewhat tricky, somewhat intriguing, because question will continue to be asked around why the destination is always London. What's the problem with our own territory, with their own primary location? Why can't there be consultations and resolution of crisis, or even some horse trading, some projections around our own corner? Why the expensive trips to London? Well, that's a question that we'll continue to ask until the gladiators themselves are able to give us an answer. But be that as it may, the other thing to talk about really is to say that I think these gladiators are actually very serious. There might be something much more fundamental that they are planning, beyond just a desire for reconciliation. Because it's increasingly appearing as if, Governor Wike particularly is irreconcilable at the moment, because the first leg of the crisis is the one he's having with the center, with the presidential candidate of the PDP. And the second leg is that the party in his state are also going apart. We have individuals in the state who are already disagreeing with him. So the crisis is snowballing. And of course, do not forget what we had during the week, where he had another Brookside, a very serious exchange with the national chairman. That has also created a crisis of confidence again. And finally, Christian, you see that what is happening now is a reflection of the fact that our democracy is still evolving, and because it's still evolving, the institutions represented in political parties are still very weak, such that individual machinations, can directly or indirectly ride roughshod on the parties. The parties are not strong. Yes, we know that parties are a confliction of different interest groups, different individual groups, but in situations where individual machinations, individual whims and caprices can directly or indirectly influence the party, it's just a reflection of the weakness evidence in the parties, as the case could be. That's a stage we are probably still in, and maybe in the future we'll get out of it, but it's something we have to deal with. Going forward, we might have to be thinking about strengthening the institutions. So when we're talking about state institutions, we should also be talking about democratic institutions, represented particularly in the political parties, because if they are weak, of course, you expect the individuals, to ride on them, once their interests are not met correctly or incorrectly. We would not see this happening in the United States, for instance. I remember one of the most prominent Democratic families in the United States is the Clinton family. And of course, Hillary Clinton lost the election against all predictions to Barack Obama, as in the primary. But of course, one way or the other, there was rapprochement. She came in and became Foreign Affairs Minister. She did not insist, that her own interest must ride above the party interest, she just subsumed her own interest eventually to that of the party. That shows the strength of the party as an institution. We are still to get there. I'm not pointing accusing fingers. I'm just trying to make an observation.
A very good observation at that. And that brings me again back to you, Victor Ayeye. How much does money and money bags play in party politics in Nigeria?
Well, that's a very good question. Money and money bag play a major role in party politics in Nigeria. And the reason is not far-fetched. The reason is the fact that in this country today, most of the people in politics are professional politicians. And what do I mean? They have seen politics as their business. They have seen politics as where they should be constantly and consistently. And because they are professional politicians, they don't want to leave the corridor of power because most of them don't have a second address. What they want to do is that they make the money in politics, they spend it in politics to remain in politics. And when the professor was talking about the US example, in the United States, some people are coming out there to serve the people. But in this country today, most of the people that we see in all these non-political or very big political parties, they are coming to serve their interests. They are on the queue in the last 2 decades. They want to make sure that this, what they call the national cake, remains with them. They want to make sure that they are in control of the state resources. And that's why they have impoverished the people. The nation is suffering. Everybody is having insecurity in the country is alarming, just because some set of people are not interested in what happens to the general populace, but they are interested in what happens to themselves. And that is what is happening today. And that is why they can afford to use any amount of money to buy vote to remain in government. So that as long as they remain in government, people will not have the dividends of democracy. They will not be able to benefit what government should do for them, but instead they give them a bowl of porridge to eat during the election. After the elections, we are back to square one. Today, I was talking with somebody. Insecurity, nobody's doing anything. There are a lot of money allocated to the budget to security. We cannot travel by train. You can't travel by road. Somebody was telling me that from Abuja to Lagos, about 100,000 aviation fuel, nobody can near it. And because of this, people cannot even travel. And somebody said, oh, you are talking about 100,000, that to travel by road to Lagos is about 50 million naira. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the meaning is that if you travel by road, then you are kidnapped. And then if you pay 50 million and you are released, then you are better. So that's why this money politics will ever remain until people start thinking about voting for people who have character, who have competence, and again, who have courage to face this challenge head on. The people that have been in government have been there for decades. And what has happened? We have gone from fry pan to fire.
I think you've situated the point. And Prof, let's come back to you. How to get out of these fry pan and from fry pan to the fire analogy that is tried to give now. I mean, Victor, particularly when you look at the youths, they are so eager to be counted in what some people are calling a new democratic revolution. Not the one of guns or machetes, but the one where their votes will count. But where is their voice in party politics if they are not there?
I think, Christian, thank you. Their voice is actually rising. The decibel is increasing. And of course, it's very obvious, not just in offline, in online medium, online media as the case could be, but also offline. We are seeing them making their marks, in remarks, in contributions, in the obvious preference for one candidate or the other. And of course, from the build-up for what happened with the NSAS protest, we cannot undermine the fact that they are becoming increasingly conscious and probably ready to participate in the next dispensation, which we are presently in now. So I think that consistent with the youth budget as well, consistent with the obvious fatigue that we are all having with the politics of patronage and compensation, and of course consistent with the new age we are in, an age which is largely captured, by the activity and the vibrancy, the robustness of the youths, I think they are going to make their mark, in next year's election. It is very, very obvious. What matters as well is for us to have an election that will say it's salutary, and that's largely dependent on the ability of INEC to pull through the introduction of technology, to make sure that, of course, they get to the end of the road, as the case could be. Yes, so far, it's been wonderful. The gradual introduction of technology has been wonderful. We expect that the transparency will continue. We have seen it happen in Kenya. We saw it happen in Angola as well. Nigeria will come maybe in the third or fourth place after some other elections on the African continent. This transparency, this integrity, this credibility being injected into the political process should really continue. And of course, we want to be at the head of it as well as a giant of Africa. But fundamentally, Christian, it's important for us to underscore the fact that we are now in a situation where new ideas are coming in. The voter population is expanding. And of course, how do elections change? How do paradigms and narratives change in an electoral process? Just two mechanisms often lead to it. The expansion of the voting population, and of course, through the instrumentality of the youth. We cannot deny that it may not happen in our own circumstance, but of course, it is still for us to wait and see. Time overall will tell.
Okay, just reminding me of the late Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Chief Bola Ige, who said, "See, don't look politics at one time, being played in the country." Let's come back to you, Victor, here. When you look at the Nigerian youth borg, do you think that they've developed that flexibility or capacity to hold down party politics and change the old guard? Victor?
Christian, thank you very much. Looking at it, I fall in that category of the Nigerian youth, and that is why when we look at what is happening presently, the youth are ready. They have seen that some people have misled them for a long while. They want to take over the mechanism of government. But of course, what you asked me in the first instance now comes into bear, the money politics. Poverty is everywhere. And because of this poverty, even the youth, they speak on social media, they do all they could do, but when it gets to where it matters, that's the point of voting. Vote buying is there, and the youth does not have that kind of money to buy the vote. So what the youth can now say, like I told people, what will happen in 2023 is not actually about the normal regular voting we used to have. 2023 will be a movement. And what I mean by a movement, it will be a situation whereby people will open their eyes and say, this time around, this is what we want for ourselves. Like I said in one of the interviews I attended, so many people that are at the departing lounge, they are the ones still want to be controlling our economy. The future belongs to this youth. Let us allow them. Like if you have a child or a child is in school, he fails first time, he fails a second time. When he fails again, the school will advise him to withdraw. These same people from the first, second, and third republic, they have failed us. It is time for them to withdraw. Let the youth who you have invested so much in to school, you have invested in their education, you have invested so much in them. Why can't these older persons allow these youth to come? This is the jet age. But in this country, we want to use old age to run the jet age generation. So the youth are ready, and it is time for the youth. And I can say here emphatically that all the youth watching me or listening to me should hold their PVC, go out there and vote for the people they want, and don't allow the money back to buy their votes.
Thank you very much. Good place for you to drop the anchor. And very quickly, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, ICPC is warning frivolous petition writers trying to damage some political figures, and they say they are up to the task and the rest. Some quick comments on that, please.
Well, that's a very good development. It also speaks to some of the points we've been making, that there are ways in which we can prevent things from happening rather than thinking of curing them. ICPC talking to politicians directly, is a way of ensuring that their bureaucracy is not overburdened and that the processes of investigating and fighting corruption, which is normally very, very cumbersome, is not complicated further. It's enough warning, but I doubt, again, if the message is meant for will actually comply, because politicians, of course, will know them for who they are. They can be very desperate, they can be very determined, and of course, they will definitely find other ways of pushing their case, whether they are correct or incorrect. But again, what matters in the matrix is for the agencies, ICPC in this instance, to also up their game, and ensure that, of course, the professor heading the place is a respectable person, but they should ensure that, they are not agents, that can be used by people that have selfish interests. Agencies are supposed to serve the interest of the public, not the interest of individuals. And if ICPC is pointing in that direction, I think it's a welcome development.
All right, thank you so very much. ICPC is giving a very strong warning to agents provocateur there. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Arise News Analyst, thanks for joining us on Newsnight, as well as Victor Ayeye. He's the SDP House of Representatives candidate in Osun State. Thanks also for being on Newsnight. Okay, it's time for a short break. We've got plenty more still ahead. Stay with us.